Hey, greetings and welcome back once again. This is Amuna. I pray everybody is doing well. Already from the top, like, subscribe, share the video. You don't know everything and all things. Giving thanks for another day of life. I pray everybody is doing well. I had a few conversations that reminded me. Hold on. I accidentally left this door open. Once again. Let me see. Wrong door. Hold on, let me try to close the other door. That should do it. That should do it. Okay. I had a few conversations this week and last week that reminded me of a topic I wanted to talk about. As you can see with the title, 18 or turning 18 does not make you grown. And depending on what society you live in, like I said, a lot of what I speak is from experience. Experience was my teacher. I'm going to read a little bit from the book. Shout out to those who got the autographed copy. If you're not, they're on sale. I can put the link in the box. And I write you a special little note and send it off in the mail. But turning 18, so I was talking to a few friends, and they were talking about their children and helping them as they transition to college, and whether they needed to have the things like not having to pay for housing or their food, because as we know, 18 in America is like a rite of passage. This thought of you're grown and you're going off to college, and and you're having this new experience, when in reality it's a setup. That's my experience, right? If it's not done in the proper way, it's a setup. But in the mind, it's like, okay, you're leaving your parents' house, and this is your first taste of freedom. Jesse, welcome. And these are all of the things that are at your doorstep. Meanwhile, on college campuses, you have credit card companies, predatory lending. You have children who may not have the ability for their parents to support them while they're there. So they're not only worrying about school or grades, they're worrying about how they're going to eat. So there are all of these different things that kind of are there to oftentimes capture people. Some people get led off the path. If I contrast that to the experience I had and some places overseas where when they're going to college or when they're going to get a higher education, still well into their 20s, they're well aware that they're not grown. They're well aware that they're not grown, and the parents extend a little more so that when they're finished their education and they're actually getting their first job and they're actually getting their foot in the door and able to stand on their feet, then it's the expectation that, okay, you're in your mid-20s, you're in your late 20s, and now you're just getting your equal footing. Here, it's more akin to what I saw, not for all people, because some people prepare, but for many, right, judging by the student debt that is saddled, I have to go look at the numbers because I don't like making up numbers, but I would say a good percentage of the population, depending on if you have student debt, just drop it below. If you're not shy and you want to let us know what the percentage of student debt is right now, or how much debt, credit card debt, you racked up when you were in your college and formative years, let us know. So basically, it's by teaching people or children or students who are going into the next phase of life that 18 is grown, when it's really just the beginning. You're just entering in, and there's no proof of concept, whether or not you change majors, how many times while you're in school, whether you're fumbling to find your way, you're not sure yet, you're still green, wet behind the ears, and there are many people out there waiting to exploit that greenness and put you in a position that it will take you many years to come out of. If you could identify with that, let me know. So shout out to the parents out there who understand and have prepared for their children that 18 is not grown, in the sense that, you're going to unnecessarily struggle when you don't have to. And once you go through it, it's like how do you can't get it back, because you you know what I mean? You could have been so much further along, or you could have been more stabilized, or you would have made different choices and decisions if you had known, right? And like I said, in other places, I remember when I was overseas and I saw a young youth on the bus, and I'm like, well, how old are you? And he's like, oh, 24. So hearing me with myself, oh, so where do you live? And they looking like, what you mean where I live? I live at home. Right? It's like, what do you mean, where do I live? I live at home because I'm still in university. I'm still at school. I haven't, because the reality is many people come out of university with no job. You know what I mean? There's so many students graduating university full with debt that's going to kick in 6 years to a month unless you kick the can down the road. You're going to have to take oftentimes jobs that you didn't train the last 4 years for, just so that you can survive, right? And then you have this whole quarter life, midlife, Adam, what's going on? Crisis. And a lot of times, if the parent was not prepared to take care of the child's needs beyond 18, it's like kick them out the nest, because I got my own stuff to do. I was watching with the children the other day, what is it, Discovery Channel, the Animal Planet. It was Earth or Animal Planet, one of those, right? So we were watching it, and then it was, what kind of birds were those? It was some birds. I don't remember exactly what birds, but they nested high up in the crevices of the mountain. If I go ask them, they'll remind me what the name of the bird was, right? So they laid their nest so far out of reach so no predators would come and get them. But when it was time to fly, it wasn't like, oh, I fell out of a tree branch, right? No, I was like, oh. So they're like hundreds of feet above the ground, and the mother takes off flying, and the bird, there's a few, 2, 3 little birds in the nest, and they go to the edge, and before they know it, boop, they go tumbling. And I'm talking about, it's some sharp rocks. This is how it is when you just kick your children out and they're not ready, right? Or we think that we are ready and we're not. And they start tumbling, boom, boom, hitting the rock. Hitting their head against the rock. They can't fly. Their wings are not dried yet. They're not strong enough yet. And I'm over here like, open your wings, right? And these birds are just tumbling and busting their head and tumbling some more. When you think they're done, they tumbling. So if it's 5 birds that fell out the nest, only 3 survived. Now, some people will say, well, that's nature. It's survival of the fittest. Given that we're not birds, you know what I mean? Not chickens or birds. We adapt a little bit differently. And when people go through those things at that phase of life, it travels with them. And the issue is that, unlike the birds, these people become mates. These people become people that you're going to be looking for. So you don't even know that underneath the polished, or underneath whatever it is these things that are informing their choices and the way they move. You know what I mean? So it's just something to think about. At the other side, giving children too much doesn't allow them to spread their wings and fly, right? So I think that there is a balance, but definitely going to school, not necessarily having a plan, and I'm speaking from experience, and depending on who you are, you can end up far, far drifting away from what you actually wanted to do. Deborah says, yeah, that was my generation. When you're 18, you're out the door. And that's what we're here talking about. There's some even I see here, oh, they 18, they out the door. And like, are they ready? Are they ready? Like at school, at these schools, you could raise your child nice and decent, and you have some people right at the school ready to turn your child out. You know what I mean? Ready to whatever path. Look to the left and look to the right. You remember that kind of stuff? Look to the left and look to the right. Somebody's not going to be here, right? And some people may not leave. They may be introduced into drugs in college, in university. They may be introduced into a lifestyle that will have them wrapped up for years to come. You know what I mean? Because losing their way. And you were like, well, what happened to you? I'm not saying parents could save the children from everything. I'm just saying 18, unless you were educated, and these schools today are not teaching you really about economics. It's not teaching you. So when you see, oh yeah, the credit card company, what is the, even when I was young, I thought something was strange about the credit card company just setting up on campus. These people don't have no job. What back then it was Burdines. I don't know if y'all remember Burdines and Dillard's and you know, all of these credit card companies, knowing full and well that these are some broke college students with half the time that don't have any job, and they're going to be hungry, and the chances are they're going to be using these credit cards just to survive. And next thing you know, they're going to be in debt, and they're going to be saddled with student loans, and they're going to be saddled with all of these things. And once they come out of college, they got you. It's a setup to a certain degree. With all that said, I'm going to read a little bit from the book. I had to get that off. So when I hear my friends talk about preparing for their children, I feel like, you know what I'm saying? At least take a little bit of that weight off the shoulder. Like, hey, all you got to do is go to school and worry about school. You know what I'm saying? All you got to do is go to school and worry about your grades. Worry about focusing on whatever it is that you're trying to do, as opposed to everything else that's going to be a distraction. Deborah says, yeah, I was disagreeing with my dad in particular, and I finished my study, which was the second choice of mine, because I wasn't allowed to study social work. Too socialist according to military. So that was exit for me. Okay. And what time, around what time was this? I don't want to be all in your business, but around what time we talking about? 80s, 90s, 70s, you know, around what time it is? Because as the time went on, as we know, it became what our parents went to school for and were able to do it, and it didn't, and they could have held a job to do whatever they needed to do. The cost of education today is nowhere near what they paid to become whatever it is that they paid to become, right? The cost of education today is, I heard somebody the other day, I was like, yo, you can't be serious. Holmesy said they was $400,000 in debt from going to school. I said, huh? 400,000, some people 250. You see, they're like the big MD on the door. 1977, right? So that's a different time where even going to school at that time was kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, something a bit more affordable than if you were to try it in this day and age, especially if you go out of state in this day and age. Here are the birds I think you're referring to. Arctic geese. I'm gonna check out the YouTube video to make sure that that's them. Possibly. All I know, boy, that tumble was, my stomach, the children were like, I can't see, turn it away, like turning it, it was brutal. I'm like, how is the bird still functioning? Their brain was like scrambled. But the mother was just like waiting for them to come down, like, you good? Let's go. I'm like, what? Anyway, thank everybody for tuning in. I'm going to read a little bit. This, like I said, this book is kind of autobiographical in the sense that it touches on a whole lot of topics. A whole lot of topics. I got to pull topics out of here for days. But this is on page 114, University. The only thing on my mind was getting out of town. My send-off was simple. At 17, I left home with a few toiletries and clothes, items my mother packed in a blue and gold trimmed trunk. During my senior year, I applied to one school, the University of South Florida. Sadly, I was more vested in the idea of getting away than actually going to college. I picked that school because my eldest brother attended. I didn't have the grades or athletic ability to get a full ride, so I had to borrow my way through. When my brother Ben heard I would be coming to school there, he seemed excited. But by the time I arrived, he had moved into a new apartment off campus with his pregnant girlfriend, Tina. Ben and Tina would soon convince me to move in with them instead of living on campus. I remember I told you about being green. I was just 17 and naive, so I agreed. I received an air mattress and a spot on their living room floor in exchange for my financial aid housing money. In the beginning, they were welcoming. Ben made an effort to show me around campus. He introduced me to all of his friends as his little sister and cautioned them to look out for me. For the most part, they did. Our apartment was a few miles from campus. I hadn't realized how far it was until I moved in. Our only mode of transport at the time was Tina's hoopty. Ben and I had different schedules. His 8 a.m. classes became my 8 a.m. classes. And by the time my classes started, he was back at the house with Tina. This arrangement left me stranded many a day. Sometimes I would fall asleep in the halls at the gym, basically wherever I could rest. Before long, I started to regret agreeing to live with them. Ben's friends questioned what kind of brother would leave his sister out in the cold. Taj was one of Ben's friends. He was cute. Nazir from the 8th grade cute. And you would have to catch up from what happened in the 8th grade with Nazir. But that was just a little portion of like stepping out a little bit into the real world and not having paid rent or not knowing what was, not knowing how financial aid really worked. And, you give a 17 or 18-year-old, financial aid check. I remember back in the day, people used to be like, all of a sudden, it's like they got their tax return or something, and people you're not realizing you're borrowing this money. You know what I mean? You're borrowing this money and they cut you a little check. They ain't giving you no financial education. They're not letting you know that, look, you know what I mean, you're going to be paying for this from some time to come. People buying new shoes, people doing all kind of stuff with their financial aid. Come mid-semester, end of semester, you hungry. You know what I mean? All kind of stuff like this because of the lack of preparation. A lot of these classes and a lot of the things, it's like, okay, wait, I don't remember using any of this, but some simple math, some simple calculations, some simple economics, that's what prayerfully and with all the tools that we have in this space and time, teaching them how to hustle, even do entrepreneurship, even when they go to school, so that they can always not solely depend on a job to say how you're going to make it in life. Deborah says it was then about 4,500 florins over a period of a year, which would be about 9,000 euros today. So not a huge amount of money as it is the case today. And yes, that's just my thoughts, y'all. You know what I mean? 18 is not necessarily grown. You are growing. We are growing. But grown, what happens even when we're at that age is that people take on adult responsibilities. And for some people, it gives them the impetus and the desire to succeed. And for other people, it saddles them too early in life. Like some people will have children very early and not be able to like catch back their bearings. Prince Nat, welcome to the conversation. You not be able to catch back your bearings, and then you just paddle in water. You're just trying to sustain. You know what I mean? And then it's like, I gave you everything. I did everything I could. And you're like, you know what I mean? It's like, if an adult is struggling, what do you think an 18-year-old is going to do? Or a 17-year-old or a 19-year-old, right? You go sign your first lease on your house, or you go do all of these things. And like I said, in other places, in other countries, the thought is, you're not ready yet. The man is not ready yet until he's able to prove that he can stand on his own 2 feet, and that he can have gainful employment, and he can take care of himself. Over here, the rite of passage is, oh, I think she's fly, he got some chin hair. Chin hair cannot do what needs to be done to determine whether or not you're going to be able to take on added responsibility. So a lot of the things are just, backwards. It's just, I like you, you like me, let's go. And then we wonder why, we struggle. You lose your planned trajectory till the future becomes yeah, you do. Because you're not clear. First of all, if you're not clear, if you didn't have the opportunity to get clear, if you didn't have the support to go through so that that clarity can be seen through, that's what the elders, we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us. So the elders are supposed to help us to see clearly down the road to say this is, but sometimes the pressure, in addition to doing what needs to be done. And like people say, when they talk about this conversation of always hustling, always hustling. Like if you see last week, week before, I took a minute because I'm always moving and I'm just taking a minute and just chilling. Because sometimes we think that this right here, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, da 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 da. See, I'm balling. See, look at me, look at me, look at me. And everybody's like, ooh. Next thing you know, you got burnout. Next thing you know, you jacked up. Next thing you know, you got nerve problems. Next thing you know, you got stomach ulcers. Next thing you know, you got insomnia. You on calm.com talking about, I need waves to help me go to sleep. Next thing you know, you're on sleeping pills. Next thing you know, you're addicted to caffeine. Why? Because the world says, oh, doing everything means you're making moves. And then half the people are not even saying, yo, now that I got where I said I wanted to be, I'm not happy. I'm not content. I don't know what to do next. This is not what I thought it was. So for different people, it was for different things. For me, weirdly, as I went to school, even though I didn't plan, I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like going to a restaurant and you don't know what you want, but you know what you don't want. You know what I mean? And so that was that person, like, I know what I don't want. And just weirdly, I thought it was a setup. It was just my conspiracy theory mind. I just always had this like, this looks like a setup to me. I don't know why. They're like, yo, this looks like a setup. This looks like a setup. And funnily enough, I was on YouTube. That's my Jeezy. Yeah, I know YouTube. And you have a few professionals, lawyers and PAs, and you know, and they're doing videos like why I quit my job. I'm like, yo, dude, you just like spent like $150K on this degree, and you over here on YouTube talking about why to start my entrepreneurial journey. I'm like, what? You quit your job? Why I quit 6-figure income? Why I did I'm like, what's going on? That after you have put all of this time, energy, and effort into this that you said you wanted, and everybody said you wanted, and everybody said is what you were supposed to do, you did it. You went in debt for it. You lived a life, you flossed, you did everything, and at the end of the day, you say, nah, this is not it. And weirdly, in my spirit, I knew that it was a trap. Not to say that everybody who pursues their things it depends, but if you're doing it for social status, if you're doing it because this is what the world says you're supposed to do, at the end of the day, you have to come into a space where you have to take inventory of yourself and be like, did I really want to do this? Because you're going to be the one who has to go in there every day. You're going to be the one who has to face the people in the office every day. You're going to be the one who has to, because essentially you're trading your time, your energy, your resource for material, right? So if you're doing it and you don't really want to do it, at the end, you're going to feel like you're losing. You're going to feel like, man, I'm selling a piece of me every time I make this transaction, every time. And all of the things that you acquire, after a while, they begin to kind of like close in and not be enough, because the trick, remember in Coming to America, is that it is these human interactions that actually touch the soul, that gives value. This is why you see, well, that in tax purposes, but a lot of people who've done all of their, movements in life, they become these entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs, they become philanthropists, right? Because now that I've attained all of this material possession, I want to touch lives. Because there's no matter what you do, if you're not able to touch life and enrich life and feel the pleasure or the joy or the gratitude from one another, it begins to feel empty. Because that's not how the soul is built. Material possessions are material possession. People drowning in their material possessions because they don't have valuable relationships. They're not able to relate. Let's see here. Sorry, y'all. To those who have just joined us, shout out to you. Welcome to the conversation. Too often, parents who survived World War II are hardcore in the expectancy of their children and project their unfulfilled dreams upon them to succeed instead of them. Yeah, this is facts. And when the children fail to fulfill their dreams, because it wasn't even their dreams to start with, parents act very punitive towards their children. That's facts. Right. That's facts. And like you said it, and you said it perfectly, because that's what happened. Even World War II, anything catastrophic, anything that the parent had to come before and go through, the thought is that this child, I'm going to invest in this child because it is an investment, right? So I'm going to invest my energy, my time, my effort, everything into this soul. And some parents go off because now the soul is, that person is not an individual. That person is your projection of your shortcomings, of your desires. So you, as the parent, now wants to live vicariously through that person. So you stifle their purpose and you stifle their voice, because now it's an ego thing. I sacrificed XYZ for you. Now you're supposed to let me feel, you know what I mean? So a lot of people go through that. And then at the end of the day, they be like, I didn't really want to do it, Mom. You see a lot of it in Nigerian culture. You see a lot of it in Indian culture. There's a Indian comedian, I think, and he spoke about in India, you know, there's only two jobs. Like either you're going to be, not the lawyer. They're usually doctors or engineers, right? Because the parents get social credibility for their children, you know, being a doctor or an engineer. So it's just this narrow funnel that they begin to. So if you come up and say you want to be a comedian, or if you come up and say you want to be a chef, it's like, you know, so it's also society gearing people. Like the only thing you need is doctor and engineer, or doctor and lawyer. In Nigeria, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be in the medical field. You're going to, you know, so you have people where they've pushed into this space, and even whether or not they want to do it or not, it's like, I want to please this person, so I'm going to do it. And then when you go down the line, you may have a midlife crisis or a quarter life crisis and realize, this is not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling. For those who just joined us, I'm going to wrap up. I want to thank everybody for coming through. That's just my thoughts of, you know, we're not necessarily grown at 18. When we was 18, we thought we was, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. But then when you look back, you're like, okay, a few more years in the oven, a few more years of preparation, a few more, sage-like sayings under your belt, a few more where you would have had the down payment for your house, or you would have paid off your car so that you're not struggling. Because the reality is, we take some of these jobs, not because we want to, but because we have to. Yeah? Because I need to eat. I need to do this. And so oftentimes society is dependent upon people taking things that they really wouldn't take on a good day, because who else is going to run it? Who else is going to do it? You know what I mean? And so that also steals the life. Like, I can't wait. I like to talk to people when I go into the store. I'd be like, how you doing today? And they'd be like, I can't wait to clock out. You know what I mean? Like, if I had a choice, I wouldn't be doing this. And for some weird reason, I was always like, yo, I don't want to be trading my resource in that way if I really didn't want to do this. And I think that's what took me like a really long time to be like, yo, I could do this 100% and feel good about what I'm doing and add service to myself and other people. You know what I mean? As opposed to, like I talked to, I talked to one of the phone company people today, and I'm like, she's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. I'm like, yo, how you doing? She was like, I'm doing okay, but if I wasn't, I wouldn't complain. You know, translation, when is lunch break? Translation, when is it time to get out of here? Stolen lives. It feels like the movie The Body Snatchers. Parents try to live the second chance on success life through their children. Yeah. So if you're a parent out there and you putting way too much pressure on your child, you might want to bethink yourself. If you're convincing them that 18 is grown, don't set them up like that. Because here's what the thing. Sometimes when you push them out too quick, they come back. Because they come back and they keep coming back. And you're like, you're back again? Because you didn't give them the ability to stand on their foot enough the first time. So next thing you know, either they keep calling you, they keep struggling, you keep bailing them out, or they're back. Because it's like taking a cake out the oven too quick. Now it's all mushy and brown outside and mushy and gooey inside. What you going to do with that? You know what I mean? What you going to do with that? So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. Is 18 too soon? Are you grown? Do you get kicked out? You know what I mean? Did you get kicked out, or did you couldn't wait to leave, so you left? What are your thoughts? All right. Everybody have a blessed day. Yeah, it's a boomerang. Jokers keep coming back till they get it right. All right.